I would like to address the harmful side of psychological separation. Approach that radically changed my life, shattering long-held beliefs about what is truly healthy. For 25 years, I sought a solution to that personal situation. While preparing for this conference, I realized why the solution was impossible. At first glance, my story might seem like a common conflict between relatives. What makes it unique is the early involvement of psychologists in a problem with my daughter's marriage. Specialist approach didn't just mirror my son-in-law behavior, it reinforced it. Instead of resolving challenges, their theories distorted reality, offering comfort to one person at the cost of others. I once believed therapy should improve, not destroy relationship. It was a wrong belief. I grew up in a destructive family when my mother thrived on the divide and conquer principle, discussing issues behind each other's backs. I longed for an honest, open relationship. I succeeded in building that with my daughter. With her marriage, everything returned. Her husband, raised in a hyper-protective environment, struggled with personal issues. Instead of openly working through own problems, he chose to blame my daughter and made me the scapegoat for their marriage issues. My daughter, used to confiding in me, was told to sever contact for a year to be contact with me for a year to become independent. With me, he cut ties entirely, falsely accusing me. Desperate for the right solution to fix the situation, I turned to a psychologist. Instead of helping, he echoed my son-in-law's stance. You have control issues. You cannot let your child go. You will object, but you want your daughter to be influenced only by you. That is natural for a parent. In your case, it's likely a need to control something that cannot be cured or fixed. You must step back, keep conversations superficial, and just send love. Although my goal was to support my daughter in a difficult life situation, I followed some of the specialist recommendations, making a grave mistake. In result, the son-in-law used the situation to his advantage. My daughter felt unprotected and abandoned, her mental health worsened, and eventually she moved to stay with me. I encouraged her to seek therapy to straighten her character and become independent from other people's influence, find a balance between relationship with her husband and her mother. Instead, the cycle repeated. Psychologist told her, your mom is jealous of your independence. It's not normal for a mother and a daughter to be this close. Personal life shouldn't be discussed with your mother. Relationship with her grandchild is the last thread she holds on to, and so on. And as my daughter adopted this new perspective, our relationship deteriorated. When I shared my pain, my daughter relayed to her therapist, I hate my mother, he advised. For your well-being, it's best not to communicate. With this validation and support, my son-in-law eventually forbade me to see my daughter and grandchildren. However, he keeps his own mother's support. They stayed away from psychological help. Because I made this mistake, hoping to resolve the situation, I delved deep into the issue and came to understand its harmfulness and doubtful help. I learned that while therapy can be transformative, the wrong approach can create more harm than healing. Through this journey, I have gained insight and developed suggestions that may help others to navigate similar situations without falling into the same traps. Therapy should empower individuals and mend connections where possible, not sever them irreparable or place blame unjustly. In sharing my experience, I hope to shed light on the delicate balance between individuality and human bonds and offer a perspective on when psychological intervention truly support growth and when they risk becoming destructive. Psychologists state that hating mothers is a part of the separation process. Separation always comes through the denial. Hate is also denial, but denial doesn't have to be hatred. Denial can just be non-acceptance without any hate. Why shouldn't it be? It would be nice to do without hatred, I guess, but it's not always possible. Hate is one of the feelings. Why shouldn't it be? In therapy, hating mom is the norm most of the time. It doesn't mean that the client has stopped loving mom. It means that he has finally allowed himself to get angry after all the years of adjusting as a child. Is it not natural for a child to listen to parents? And if something was wrong with the childhood, if vendetta or hatred to mother is necessary step to become independent? Both psychologists, mine and my daughter's, interpreted my action as attempt to control, to blackmail, and to manipulate, although my goals and intentions were quite different. So it seems that in interpersonal inquiries, it's unethical to discuss people behind their backs, especially if creating hatred is a normal and helpful step of the process. At least it should be justified. Something is totally wrong there. It's happened that it was time I hated my mother for really serious things she did to me. It was a very destructive feelings to carry inside. I had to work on it, reading helpful literature. When I managed to free myself from it, it was a huge relief, a great investment in my mental health. When I learned that the therapist specially helped the daughter to nurture that feeling, I could not believe. But then it came out that this was an approved professional intervention. At the same time, a parent is recommended to accept and improve everything that an adult child does. For that, parent needs changes, even changes which does not make any sense. There is always a solution, explained a psychologist, but you may not like it because it's required you to change. In the beginning, I did a lot of changing, following the recommendation of psychologists dealing with my daughter's marriage, but they did not work. Specialists usually put responsibility on me, saying that I used an appropriate tone of voice or wrong words, but the reason was different. Specialists were fixing the wrong problem. If psychologists could change their way as well. One psychologist helped me to understand why my real situation felt so different from the way professionals describe it. She said, I make conclusion as I usually do. I hear what you say and intuitively guess what you don't say. Then I extract from my memory similar cases from my practice, rely on the literature of other psychologists who describe their experiences. And finally, I put myself in your place, imagining how I might react, what I would want, and what I would be angry about. That is how my understanding of other people is formed. Before starting therapy, I had imagined the process very differently. This contrast is best illustrated through an image. Imagine a lonely island with a single tree symbolizing the client's struggle. Nearby, a dim lamp represents their inner knowledge. Across the water, a therapist sits in a comfortable gazebo surrounded by professional ethics, theories, statistics, studies, and abstract models. I envision a specialist stepping into the client island, taking the time to understand its landscape. Carefully listening would allow them to create an accurate picture, getting to the very core of the problem. Only after reaching a shared understanding should the professional draw upon their memory of similar cases, the experiences of other psychologists, and relevant literature to develop solutions that are actually applicable. The client then chooses a path forward, and together they begin the work. But in reality, things are often very different. The burden falls on the client to figure out which specialist fits their need. And the bigger challenge, being truly heard and understood. Most specialists, as described before, listen to clients from their comfort zone, through their own professional filters, rather than through the client's lived reality. Given the vast number of therapeutic methods, many clients drift from one specialist to another, accumulating frustration, both emotional and financial. There are objective reasons for this. Most professionals work within a limited set of techniques, diagnosing clients through the lens of their tools they are most familiar with. As a result, a single client may receive multiple, sometimes contradictory diagnoses. In my own experience, I was given more than 15 different diagnoses by different specialists for the same situation. A better system might involve a diagnostic specialist or even a small team who could accurately assess a client issue and direct them to the most suitable form of treatment, similar to how general practitioners refer patients to the right medical specialist in somatic medicine. Another improvement could be to charge for initial session only if the clients decided to continue working with that professional. I used to work with psychologists who had personally overcame the same issue I was facing. He offered a clear roadmap for recovery, which made perfect sense to me. Because he truly heard and understood me, under his guidance, working hard, I was able to resolve a very complex problem in under a year. However, another deeply personal issue, my difficulty with my daughter's marriage, only worsened under his guidance. He did not trust my arguments and objections, and they contradict the theoretical model in his mind he relied on. Through both my experience as a client and my work with mentally ill and sick individuals in a non-professional capacity, I've learned an important truth. It's crucially important to hear a client, to understand and create in specialist mind the same picture of a client reality. Then together changes instead of specialist would impose his vision and his expertise. Metaphorically speaking, it would give better result if professional would bring his knowledge and ability to client island instead of helping them from his gazebo. Unfortunately, many psychologists are quick to fit clients' problem into familiar theoretical models, then insist on solutions based on those assumptions. If a client resists, they think that it's a good sign and need to work first through their resistance. Then psychology promotes separation therapy as a tool for personal autonomy and growth. However, My experience shows that it often mirrors my dysfunctional family dynamic, where the problem of one person is resolved at the expense of other participants. Instead of healing, it reinterprets past events to justify estrangement, positioning the therapist as a new parental figure. Separation specialists argue that emotional bond with parents hinder independence. The process rewrote our relationship, framing me as manipulative and controlling. This resembles how my son-in-law influenced my daughter, reinterpreting my actions behind closed door, twisting intentions, and erasing positive memories. Therapy did the same. It didn't resolve her struggles. This turned them into weapons. Therapy isolates adult children from their parents, just as toxic family members manipulate by controlling narratives. Therapists exclude parents from the process, relying solely on the client's version of events. Without cross-examination, distortions become truth. This not only deepened misunderstanding, but also fostered resentment where none originally existed. Psychologists claim to promote autonomy, yet they dictate that the client should feel. Hate your mother is a part of the process to separate yourself. Distance yourself, it's been necessary for the growth. Suppress positive emotions towards mother, they are a sign of dependency. That is not a healing, it's a reprogramming. Psychologists insist that at 18 years old, parents must relinquish all the influence while still being held accountable for their child's well-being. Yet true independence isn't about severing bonds. It's about making informed, conscious choices. Healthy relationships allow for both autonomy and connection. Psychologists should facilitate understanding, not enforce estrangements. If separation therapy truly aimed to resolve conflict, it would include parents, ensuring a balanced perspective. Healing isn't about replacing one authority with another. It's about restoring the ability to navigate relationship with clarity, free from imposed narratives. Emotionally close relationships are those in which all participants feel comfortable, strive to understand each other's feelings, care for one another, trust, and share personal thoughts without fear of judgment. However, modern psychology has decided that it's unhealthy for an adult child to have such a relationship with their mother. It's believed to hinder their ability to grow up. A psychologist specializing in a separation might say, if you have a problem where your daughter was your friend and psychologist separated her, I can help you. But the real problem is different. My daughter was my friend, but became my enemy as a result of psychological separation. Do you see the difference? Psychologists argue. Your daughter could never have voluntarily become your friend. But by making you her friend, she automatically loses her mother. No child would choose this. Your responsibility was to maintain the parent's role. The moment you notice your daughter become your friend, you as a parent should never reinforce boundaries. Should have reinforced boundaries that separated her a little to show her place in hierarchy. Instead of helping with real problems, psychologists try to force real life into a theoretical framework. But why can't parents fulfill their parental responsibility while being friends to their children? A psychologist might counter, well, children never asked to be born. It was a parent's decision to bring them into the world out of their own whims. To which I respond, children are not born out of mere whims. It's a natural process and the foundation of human life. I ask many psychologists for a roadmap to restoring relationship after separation. None of them had an answer. They do not even consider it, but isn't having a mother better than having a psychologist, even a very good one? Psychologist responded, yes, having a mother is undoubtedly better, but unfortunately not all women who gave birth want to become mothers. Some women befriend their children instead of forming adult relationship with peers or spouses. Others are controlling or instilling anxiety or guilt in their children. That is why in therapy I emphasize creating a positive image of a parent in the client's mind. By why do psychologists create an ideal parent in their client's mind? So separation from the mother is the only initial step in the whole process. Creating an ideal parent in client's mind is an ultimate goal. Compared to that image, any real mother could never be equal. Usually in the process, a real mother becomes distorted and toxic. In the process, she should be understood, accepted, and forgiven, and the client should let her go. She should be metaphorically killed in the client's mind, and as adult children don't need a mother. They should be mothers for themselves. That the ideal parent the therapist helped them to create. One young woman said the process took 5 years of therapy for her only to be separated from her mother this way. 3 years is the average time to be completely free from a real mother. After separation, a person my daughter described as a real mother does not have much in common with me. Communicating with different young women after the separation process, their mothers and I had a lot in common. So that is a prepared image of a real mother. Psychologists help their clients with the image, which is an obstacle to their success in different areas of life. The question arises, how come so many toxic parents suddenly appeared? Well, in comparison with the ideal mother, that is understandable. If a person had a difficult or traumatic childhood, psychologists help them create a positive parent figure in their mind to provide what was lacking: support, recognition, protection. This helps reduce anxiety and increase inner stability. When an adult child imagines a loving and supportive parents, they stop criticizing themselves excessively and learn to care for themselves. If parents instill guilt, fear, or obligation to always be good, the ideal parents helps rewrite these harmful beliefs. Why is this approach problematic? Deviation of real parents. The person inevitably compares their real parents to the ideal one and become disappointment, leading to resentment, distance, or emotional or even total estrangements. Detachment from reality. Real parents are not perfect, but they can still be loving and valuable. Therapy sometimes overlooks the importance of accepting parents as they truly are. Avoidance of dialogue. Instead of working on restoring relationship with the real parents, the individual fixates on past wounds and straightened emotional distance. The ideal parents is shaped by the childhood trauma and unmet needs. If parents were cold or critical, the ideal parents is warm and supportive. If parents are overly controlling, the ideal parents allow freedom and mistakes. If parents were unpredictable or aggressive, the ideal parents is stable and calm. If parents told not to did not protect from external threats, the ideal parent provides safety, security. I experienced firsthand the effect of this psychological reworking of childhood wounds. After therapy, nothing of my real self remained in my daughter's mind. I was turned into a monster mother. Other separated mothers reported similar results. Many psychologists say that relationship will improve over the time. However, despite my efforts, nothing improved. So I started asking specialists how relationships should be improved after separation. After all, the child has gained independence, goal achieved. Yet the reaction was negative. Studying separation theory helped me understand why they reacted this way and insisted that I must change myself, accept it, and let it go. Some psychologists bring up the point the cat separates with their kittens forever, but we humans still function differently. It's said that a cat loses her maternal instincts if it does not see her kitten for 3 days. Although I did not see my daughter more than 10 years, I cannot forget her and feel free from her existence. Why do psychologists avoid the topic of reconciliation? Therapy often prioritizes personal identity, even if it leads to cutting off family ties. In many therapeutical models, parents are inherently seen as the sources of trauma rather than a resource of support. There is few structured programs for restoring family relationship. The risk of this approach, the ideal parents become an unattainable standard, leading to unrealistic expectation from real people. Instead of reconciliation and dialogue, the client deepens resentment and detachment as a step to progress. The separation process, in its extreme form, resembles competitive marketing tactics. First, by discrediting the parental product, the values, upbringing, and emotional attachment, practitioners often create the need for a better solution. This solution is often reparenting, where therapists position themselves as a new guiding figures, subtly overly replacing parental influence. It makes sense from a marketing strategy point of view. Identify the problem, frames the parent as a root cause of all difficulty, often using oversimplifying logic. Creating needs shows the client how much better life could be without this outdated or toxic influences. Offer a solution. Present reparenting and total independence as the key to freedom and happiness. Build loyalty. Maintain influence over the client by continually justifying the separation. It would be fascinating to explore how this business-like dynamic contrasts with the genuine therapeutic approaches focused on healing without alienation or imposed narratives. That make perfect sense and explain why requests about rebuilding relationship after separation were met with resistance and even hostility from professionals. If reparenting is a true goal of the process, then rebuilding relationship with parents would undermine the entire model these specialists have invested in promoting. The situation could not be changed. You have to let it go. Other people could not be changed, so you need to change yourself. Proclaiming professionals in contradiction to themselves after my daughter changed drastically under their influence. And the only way left for a parent is to get relief for their situations with the help of psychologists to look for substitution for emotional connection with own child. Instead of focusing on parental flaws and pushing for separation, therapy should emphasize personal reconstruction, a natural and adaptive way of finding oneself without rejecting the past and important people. It is a balanced approach that integrates past experiences into a stronger, healthier self. This means taking what is valuable from one's upbringing, adjusting certain elements to better fit personal values, inventing new ways of thinking and interacting, understanding that independence is not about rejection, but about conscious evaluation. Instead of creating ideal parents, adult people can find a lot of opportunities in real life for their purposes. Instead of longing for idealized nurturing figure, develop emotional warmth through chosen relationship as a source plentiful. Rather than expecting an imagined perfect guide, learn to take risks and make independent choices. Focus on building personal emotional stability and resilience instead of seeking a protector. Strengthen your own ability to set boundaries and ensure potential safety rather than expecting an external source of constant securities. Instead of forcing people to abandon their real family for imaginary ideal parents, therapy should promote understanding, acceptance, forgiveness, reconciliation, seeking ways to improve relationships rather than destroy them. There is plenty of opportunity exists to build own independence without deliverance of what seems as an obstacle. The goal should not be to impose a one-size-fits-all theory to empower individuals to find their own way. Therapy should facilitate this process with a no-harm approach, one that does not force artificial separation, but instead foster self-awareness, resilience, and meaningful connections. Personal growth should be about integration, not isolation. Reconstruction allows people to transform without destroying, to grow without severing, and to find themselves without losing what matters. Dear separation psychologist, please don't be like my son-in-law. Don't deprive young women of their real mothers, and don't label mothers as toxic or unnecessary, cutting them out of their adult children's lives. From speaking with many daughters who have undergone separation, I've noticed a painful pattern. It feels as if a part of them has been surgically removed, but no one has stitched the wound back together. They live with open wounds, and the idealized substitute parents offered in the therapy fail to heal them. Instead, the wound festers. Those are my daughter's own words written after going through the separation process. For many years, the word mama, in any form, spoken or printed, caused me unbearable pain. Hearing the word mom in conversation, songs, or poetry felt like a piercing cry in my soul. I worked with a therapist for years to process this painful perception of my mother. Dear professionals, please create something healing and constructive, not destructive. Let your work be guided by a simple but powerful rule: do no harm. Thanks a lot for listening.